It's Dothan High School Wolves football on your home for great country legends. 96.9 The Legend. And now it's the Jed Kennedy Coaches Show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome into the Jed Kennedy Coaches Show. I am Philip Jordan, the in-studio host and producer of Dothan Wolves football, right here on 96.9 The Legend. Each week, Coach Kennedy reviews the Wolves' previous game and previews the upcoming opponent. Tonight, Coach Kennedy will review the Wolves' 48-14 win over Smith Station and preview tomorrow night's big game versus Auburn to close out region play. We're going to take a quick break, but when we return, Coach Kennedy will join Jerry Coleman and Ken Lambert right here on 96.9 The Legend.
Thank you for joining us for the Thursday night Jed Kennedy Coaches Show here on 96.9 The Legend. Coach, victory homecoming against Smith Station 48-14, 21-14 at the half. So defense did a great job in the second half, and offense just stayed moving along and scored another 21 points. Kind of your first thoughts of last Friday night's game?
Yeah, I think for the most part we played well. We had talked about, last week that was a much improved Smith Station team. And I thought that, we played well enough, especially early, to kind of take them out of their game. They couldn't really move the ball on us. We had 3 turnovers, which I think, really probably helped, make the score look a little closer than it probably was early. But, again, a lot of kids got to play. Another big night by A.J. Alexander. I think he had 250 yards on 17 carries and 3 touchdowns again. So obviously, I don't want to say you don't get impressed by it, but it just kind of seems to be the status quo for AJ to have a great night. But again, a lot of people involved. Marcus Reeves had a great run early in that game. I think it was the second touchdown, and we worked. Obviously, Sam brought a ways out for an extended period of time with the shoulder. Obviously we've got a huge game tomorrow night against Auburn, so it let us try some different things and play some different players back there in the quarterback position to get ready for that. So I think really, really just a good night all around for our program.
And Coach, I thought, talking about not having Sam, I thought Tanner did a great job back there. He did have, just the normal things you would expect from not having the reps of, I think there was a handoff that we had there. Just didn't mesh good on that, but thought he did a good job. He did throw an interception, just kind of underthrew it, but then came back second half, throws a touchdown. So he seemed to kind of manage the game pretty well back there.
Yeah, he did. And the thing that, if there was a silver lining of Sam getting, hurt against Jag, was that it wasn't like the Auburn game was the next week. So Tanner's first snaps at quarterback were against a top 5 team in the state. So we had a week to go out there and get him, 40 reps at the quarterback position, and thought he did a great job taking command of the huddle. And, we put a lot of offense in with them. Fortunately or unfortunately, either one, we didn't need a lot of plays Friday night. I think we only ran 5 different plays. But, like I said, just, when he goes out tomorrow and lines up at quarterback, it's not going to be his first time doing that. And he's a senior. He started a lot of football games here, and I'm just kind of really excited to see how he plays.
Coach, and of course, with that position, kind of that blocking back, kind of what does that look like, Tanner being in the backfield? How does that shore up that blocking back tight end position?
Jay Gray has went Jacobian Gray has played the whole game at tight end last week, so he'll do that. And, we're going to have some packages where Sirlathian's on the field with AJ in the backfield, and then Tanner goes back to tight end. Just, what it is you want. Tanner's had a great year at tight end, just a phenomenal season. So certainly don't want to lose that aspect of things. So just got some different packages, where AJ's at slot, Tanner's at quarterback, Sirlathian's at running back. And, it is football's all about matchups. You just have to go out and, see how those matchups work and adjust personnel-wise and play-wise with what's going to work tomorrow night.
Yeah, I kept waiting to see Tanner carry the ball. Normally we would see Sam in that position. You'd kind of choose the right time for him to run the keeper. And I said, well, I'm interested to see Tanner run the ball on the keeper, but he didn't have to. Was one of the good things. Coach, you mentioned AJ. All his yards came in the first half. That hit us afterward. I went back and looked. his first run, he had 17 carries. His first run was 50 yards, and his last run was 62 for a big touchdown. And so he just, like you said, just continues to just churn. And he's always going to have that explosive play, seems like at least one every game.
Yeah, I think, he doesn't go down on the first contact. He's one of those guys, if you give him a crack, he's going to have a big run. And it seems like if there's not anything there, he's going to have a good run too. And, I've said this a ton. He's just, man, he's a great, easy kid to root for. He's one of the best people I've been around. He's one of the best people in our program. Certainly fortunate that he wears Wolves on the front of his jersey. And certainly if we want a chance against Auburn tomorrow night, he's going to have a big night. He's going to have to, just because obviously with some of our injuries, just limited with some of the things we can do. But, it comes back to players, not plays, right? And got to get the ball to our players and let them do their thing.
Coach, one thing we haven't seen until last week was turnovers. Kind of looking back at film, anything that showed up differently in that game versus 6 or 7 games before that?
No, I think Tanner's was at the end of the half, right? We threw a deep ball, underthrew it a little bit, so that was one. Obviously when we spin in the backfield, that adds an element to things. So we, like I said, we had a lot in with Tanner. We spun and fumbled that ball. And then we had one where, Sirlathian was down on the ground and they came up with the ball. And like I told Sirlathian, that's why we get up and hand the ball to the official, and then there's no question. So, I can tell you this much: if we turn the ball over 3 times tomorrow night, it's not going to be good for us, against a team of that quality. Fortunate we're able to get away from it. If you think about, the couple games that we've had turnovers in, it was, Carver and it was, Friday night. You cannot turn the ball over. And for the good thing is, for the most part this year, we've been good taking care of the football. Just need to continue, like I said, to do that tomorrow night. And Auburn's a physical defense, but, again, had a lot of people carry the ball, and, I think we had 50 carries or something Friday night. So, our football is the program, right? And can't turn it over. And like I said, I think maybe we got our last bad one out of the way when it comes to that.
And Coach, now I'm questioning myself if I've got the right game. But was it this past Friday night they used the rugby style kick? Did we have a miscue on whether to play that or not play that?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, they kicked the ball. It was a rugby style kick, and it went about 10 yards off or 10 feet off the ground every time. And it was one of those things where it hit the ground, and I thought our punt returner made the right decision to catch it. It hit the turf and just took off like a missile, and ended up getting his hands up on it. So we had a special team turnover too. So really that's 4 of them.
Coach, you got a lot of players. Because of the score, mainly in the second half, got a lot of kids in. It's worked hard and kind of backups. Kind of anybody stand out from last week that maybe I know we've had a few games where those kids were getting to play a lot of playing time. Of course, previous games you had a running clock, so it kind of like one series in and out. But it seemed like Friday night a lot of kids got to play. So anybody kind of stand out that?
One guy on the defensive side of the ball, Jeff Blackman. He's only a sophomore. He's a big linebacker, 6'1", 215 pounds. Played some snaps early in the year, when Aaron Scott's been out. But he played, Aaron's kind of been fighting an ankle thing all year. And Jeff played pretty much the whole second half and played really, really well. And he'll be a kid that'll obviously slide into that position next year. And then Jeffrey Torrance took some snaps at outside linebacker and did a good job. And, he's had a great year on the JV for us. And, really didn't start playing football till late in, his career. So he's one of those kids, gets better every time he gets out there. So those were 2 younger guys that really stuck out to me Friday night.
Coach, I'll add another Torrance. Travion Torrance makes a big touchdown catch. He's had some opportunities at that wide receiver slot, got to play a little bit more, I think, Friday night. So it was good to see him to catch that pass down the middle for a score.
Yeah, he is crazy talented. He's 6'3", almost 6'4", 190 pounds. I tell him all the time, I don't know if he realizes how athletic he is and how good he can be. And, he's played a little bit more each week. And obviously, when you lose your quarterback and you're not throwing it as much, it's kind of trimmed down our package, especially formation wise. Think about it, we were spreading it out a little bit more earlier in the year. Just, with where we're at right now, we're not doing that. But it was a great catch, and he's he's a great kid. He's got a great personality, and think that he's only scratching the surface of how good he can be for us.
Coach, I'm going to do one more final question before we step into the second half when we talk about tomorrow night's game. But I know freshmen kind of wrapped up their season. I think JV, if they haven't, they're close to it. But just talk a little bit about those two programs that's going on also at Dothan High School.
Yeah, our freshman team went up and had a game up in Smith Station on Monday. That was their last game of the year. They finished 5-2. Beat Enterprise twice, beat Crestview. Had a 2-point loss to Carver, and I think had a 7-point loss to Auburn. So very competitive games. It's a great group. They work really hard. Did not have a lot of success in middle school, so I was excited for them to get them over and practice at the high school. So again, they went 5-2, and then our JV finished 4-3. So certainly have some good players coming up. I'm one of those believers that you get better at football by playing football, and the fact that we had a 7-game JV schedule and a 7-game freshman schedule. Was awesome that those kids got a lot of meaningful minutes to get a lot of those kids ready to step into roles next year on Friday nights.
And Coach, I said one question, but let me follow up with this one. I know JV kind of runs the same formation offense, kind of with the wing formation, but that ninth grade team, they kind of run the same thing over there at Carver.
Yeah, they do. And our 7th and 8th grade do also. And that's when we talk about building a program. You can't, reteach every year offenses that you put in. So, yeah, we run the same system from 7th grade all the way through seniors.
Great. Well, that's going to wrap up the first half of our Jed Kennedy Coaches Show here on 96.9. After the break, we'll get ready and talk about tomorrow night's game where the Auburn Tigers come into Ripview Stadium for a big regional game at 7 o'clock with a 6:45 pregame here on 96.9 The Legend. We'll be right back after this short commercial break. Welcome back into the Jed Kennedy Coaches Show here on Thursday night. Coach, big region game tomorrow night. Auburn Tigers come into Ripview Stadium. Coach Keith Etheridge brings in a 7-2 Auburn Tiger team who, if I'm not mistaken, 2 years ago, the last time they came in to Ripview, it was kind of a last winning drive touchdown game, if I remember the score correctly.
Yeah, we missed a field goal at the end of regulation to win it, and then we lost in double overtime. We went for 2. I think it was 21-22 or 22-23. But obviously, Auburn for a long time has been one of the premier programs in the state. Coach Etheridge, one of the most successful coaches in the history of the state. So we've got a lot of tradition there, and certainly have our work cut out for us. They lost early to Vestavia, second game of the year, and they lost to Central Phoenix City, and they're playing really, really good football right now. They won 48-7 over Carver. The game was never close. We certainly got our work cut out for us. Like I've said all along, if we play good football, we can play with anybody in our region. And like I said, we've had a great week of practice, and I think anytime in football when you control your own destiny, that's a great thing. And there's a 99% chance if we win Friday night that we'll be a playoff team. It's not 100, but pretty close to that. And I think that there's a lot of people that are either at this point going into the last region game of the year, either out of the playoffs or need a lot of help to get in. And the reality is this: if we don't win Friday night, we don't have a chance to get in. 0 chance. So we've treated it as a playoff week, which I think we probably always do. But like I said, the chance to be playing this late in the year, not needing help, knowing if we go out and take care of business, we've got a great chance to be a playoff team. It's just exciting for our program. And I know that when I took the job, I know the one thing that when I talked to a lot of people was had been a lot of games played in late October that really did not have a lot of meaning for the two schools. And we've now been in a mix here for 4 years in a row where games late in the year mean something, whether it be playoff seeding or being qualifying teams. So we're excited. I expect us to play well. We're going to play hard and physical like we always do. And like we'll say, we're going to put all our chips on the table and see what happens.
Hey, Coach, I know we've been trying to follow this Auburn team kind of throughout the year, and you kind of mentioned it just when you think maybe they're vulnerable. They come up like last week and beat what we thought was a really explosive Carver team. They hold them to 7 points. And if I remember kind of their story at the first of the year was, hey, we've got some young guys on offense, but our defense is strong, and we've got to we're going to play really good defensively while these younger guys get older. You think that offense is there? Or is it the defense of Auburn that really seems to dominate their games?
I think it's two things. I think number one, obviously they've got a great staff up there. At the beginning of the year, they almost looked like Auburn of old, if that makes sense, schematically. A lot of formations, a lot of shifts, running the football, that type of thing. And I think that they've kind of realized after, kind of that first 3 or 4 games that they just really struggled to run the ball. And they've got a quarterback who's been offered by Auburn. He's 6'4". He's one of the best quarterbacks, not only in the state, country. And, they opened up the game against Smith Station. They threw the ball 35 out of the first 37 plays. So they've kind of, I don't want to say shifted what they've done offensively because they've always loved to throw the ball, but they're going in with a mindset of we're going to throw the ball and you're going to have to stop the pass if you're going to beat us. So I think, that, is the first thing, that I think is unique about them. And Auburn just always plays great defense. They always do. They've got Coach Goolsby does a great job on that side of the ball. They've got, a D tackle that was committed to Arkansas at one point, so he's an SEC player. They've got a middle linebacker who actually be a teammate with A.J. Alexander at North Alabama. He is as good a linebacker as I've seen on film all year. So they've got great players, great pieces. They've got a great scheme. So, like I said, certainly have our work cut out for us. But I think we've shown that we're a good football team too. And when we play our brand of football and get stops and take care of the ball and run the ball, that there's nobody we can't play with either.
Coach, that quarterback you mentioned is Casey Myers, who moved into Auburn from Pike Road last year, and we saw a little bit of him, not with the Wolves, but just other highlight films. But, you're going up against a defense, and you just mentioned them that, they only average giving up 13 points, I believe, a game. But an offense, we think in the past has been very explosive, and they throw the ball. And I think Myers went 15 for 20 last week in that big win against Carver. They only really average about 28 points a game. So, and of course, Dothan's averaging 40. So kind of your thoughts on, I know it's statistics, but you got to put on the chin strap like everybody else. But looking at those numbers, here we are, and they're 9 games into their season.
Yeah, I think the numbers for them are a little bit misleading again, just because, at the beginning of the year, maybe they weren't playing as well as what they thought they were. It's kind of what have you done for me lately, right? Well, what have they done for me lately? Well, they've crushed Smith Station. Moody's one of the top teams in 5A in the state. They beat them by 40. They beat Carver, who was, I think, ranked 6th in the state, by 40. So that's what I know. And but like I said, one thing about our kids is they'll play anybody. They ain't scared of anybody, and we think we can beat anybody. And like I said, these kids, a lot of these kids started for us that year. We had Auburn on the ropes down at our place, and we seemed to play really well at Rip Hughes. We had a great environment last Friday night, and we need another one. Got to make a home field advantage. And so it's like I said, obviously, Jerry, they're really good and present a lot of problems. Like I said, I will say I don't know if they're as explosive as they were in the past. With taking shots and scoring. Like I said, when they played Smith Station, they threw the ball the 35 out of the first 37 plays, and I would bet 90% of those passes were 5 or 6 yard short routes. Mm-hmm. And they take what you give you. And the quarterback, what's really hard about that quarterback, he has such a quick release. So if you blitz him, you can't get home. Well, if you don't blitz him, you give him all the time of the day, but he gets the ball out so quick anyways. So it's it gives up very few sacks. They do, and I think a lot of it is he gets the ball and he gets it out. So we got our work cut out for us on that side of the ball. Our kids know that. Like I said, I'm excited for the game. We're treating it as a round 1 playoff game. Again, we know if we don't win, we have 0 chance to be a playoff team. So, like I said, I'm just glad that it falls in our court for us to win. For where if we win, we got a great chance of getting in.
Coach, do you see is the quarterback more of a pocket passer, or is he dangerous outside the pocket as well?
He's both. He can run, and I think that's what's crazy is I talk about how they've didn't run the ball great at the beginning of the year. Well, they've added a lot of quarterback runs, and he is good. He's slippery, takes a lot of shots. He's obviously durable. He doesn't get hurt. So, like I said, certainly he does it all. It is if you're recruited by an SEC team to play quarterback, you're obviously a special talent. And he is. He's only a junior. So, like I said, we'll give it our all. And like I said, I think the one thing is what makes him unique at the receiver position. They don't have a 4-star kid out there, like some of the kids we've seen from, like Central has, but they have 4 kids where I literally think they could change numbers and you wouldn't be able to tell them apart because they're all really good football players, so it's not like we can put King Hall on their best receiver because they've got 4 that are equally as good. So, like I said, their quarterback does a good job mixing it up and getting it to the different players.
Yeah, and Coach, looking back at their stats, it looks like they use all 4. There's no Cam Coleman that's going to get it 50% of the time. They spread the ball out as Myers does, and looking at their stats. But kind of, Coach, as we wrap up this part, kind of the week of practice. I know with Sam being out, had to make some changes, more snaps than last week. Knowing that this week, you got ready for a big game tomorrow night.
Yeah, we've had a great week of practice, and like I said, it's. Our kids know, especially our seniors, this is do or die time, right? And, it's for a lot of these kids, especially their seniors, their times of taking snaps in football are done and not a lot of snaps left. It makes me sad to think about for them because a lot of them are really good players and a lot of them have done a lot for this program. The one thing I'll say about practice is as the year goes on, a lot of it is scheme-based. My philosophy is this. If you can't backpedal going into week 9, we're not going to teach you to backpedal. If you can't tackle last week, we're not going to teach you to tackle this week. So, and we're a program that prides ourselves on fundamentals, and we do a lot of fundamentals in practice. As the year goes on, we trim that back, and a lot of it becomes scheme-based. Just because, like I said, it's if you don't know how to take a handoff by now, we're probably not going to do a drill in the next week that teaches you how to take one. So a lot of scheme stuff. But like I said, it's a great opportunity for our program to be, the third week of October and playing a meaningful football game. And, like I said, I hope we get a great crowd out there to support these kids. Auburn always travels well, and just excited to go out and see what we can do.
Well, Coach, as always, we appreciate your time and get ready for tomorrow night's game against the Auburn Tigers. You've been listening to the Jed Kennedy Show here on Thursday night on 96.9 The Legend.
You've been listening to Dothan High School Wolves football, exclusively on your home for great country legends, 96.9 The Legend.